You are listening to your girl Kiki Green. This is one of our first Patreon only exclusives. This is the first part to a very important series on the virus and the vaccine propaganda. This is very important. We must get down to the bottom of it. We must understand how the propaganda works because they are going to continue to do this in the future. The first thing we're going to talk about today, I'm going to share with you a video that I posted on my Instagram this morning. The video talks about everything that I have been saying for years on my channel in regards to HIV, in regards to the Plandemic, in regards to the PCR test, the propaganda. Okay. So I've explained several times why HIV is not the virus that causes AIDS. I've explained it several times. And basically, Dr. Fauci and friends have repurposed their tools, their promotional and propaganda materials from their HIV scam because it's gotten old and stale. Okay. So once you understand the HIV scam, then Corona doesn't work on you and none of their other propaganda will work on you. You have to understand the language in order to properly attack these things. Now, I set this video, I thought I did anyway, to unlist it for my Patreon only. This information is so important that it looks like it has slipped past my editing skills. Okay, so if you don't hear this live, it will only be available on the Patreon after that, and the part two will be available only to the Patreon subscribers. All right, then it's $1 a month. Now, I have explained over and over and over again, so maybe if you hear white people say it, maybe if you hear the sound of a white person say the same thing that I see it will sink on into your cranium because it really irritates me when I go down my timeline and I see people who I know have been listening to my content still go and get vaccinated. This makes me wonder now as the teacher, what is it I didn't say? What is it that we missed? These are the same players. So let's go to the video and then we're going to come back to commentary. Please feel free to donate so that I can upgrade my equipment. I need a couple more cords for my mixer and some adapters and stuff. Okay, so feel free to donate. Now,
Dr. Kerry Mullis was awarded the Nobel Prize for his invention of the polymerase chain reaction, the PCR. The PCR is a method of analysis and wasn't designed to test for a virus. Mullis explains why.
And with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to something that you can really measure, which PCR can do, then there's just very few molecules that you don't have at least one single one of them in your body, okay? So that could be thought of as a misuse of it, just to claim that it's meaningful.
The PCR test can potentially find any.
Let me break down what Carrie Mullis is saying. Carrie Mullis is the man who is speaking. Carrie Mullis is the man who invented the PCR test. If you've been listening to me, I've been telling you this since 2016 about the PCR test. On the Patreon, there are documentaries that Carrie Mullis made while he was alive. There was nothing else left for him to say. Had you been listening to him, he did his damn job. He did his damn job. Okay? He did his job. So rest in peace to him. Now, Carrie Mullis transcended on August the 7th of 2019. This is right before they start telling you to stay in your house. Okay, 2019, August of 2019. And guess whose birthday is in August? The person whose helicopter went up, January 2020. All right. You must understand that Carrie Mullis invented the PCR test. You must also understand what it does. So I want to make sure you walk away from here understanding what it does. I have even made cue cards for y'all that are, of course, out of order. Now, Mullins was letting people know that Dr. Fauci and another man by the name of Robert Gallo are very dangerous mad scientists. Okay? Robert Gallo is the scientist who published the first paper saying that the virus that caused AIDS was HIV. All right? Now, this is important because the CDC was losing money at the time. But HIV got so much money for the CDC and put them back in the black and kept them in play. Now, Dr. Carrie Mullis is not just some quack you can Google. Not that Google is reliable, but being somebody, Dr. Carrie Mullis won the Nobel Peace Prize for this PCR. It is called the polymerase chain reaction. That's what PCR stands for. Now, in the clip I just played, he explained to you what it did. He said, you can find anything in anybody if you will amplify a single molecule into something that you can measure, but to claim it's meaningful is useless. So how the PCR works, they take a sample of your DNA. Where do you find DNA? Okay, different ways to get bodily secretions to get your hands on some DNA. Now, DNA is so small. How can you read something so small? You have to magnify it. So all polymerase chain reaction says is that they are able to magnify your DNA. And the more they magnify it, the more they're able to read it. But then there's a point where you magnify it so much to where you don't see anything. Now, the sciencey part that I'm gonna make sure you understand. I don't know why ain't nobody else is not breaking this down because this is so simple. Okay? Why is something like this that you gotta know? Why did he get a Nobel Peace Prize? What is so important about it? What's so important about this polymerase chain reaction? Well, logic theory is that if you were to have a virus and a person A has a virus, if person B has the same virus, then your DNA should have some of the some molecules or proteins or something. And when I tell you or something, Carrie Mullis said to claim that the PCR is meaningful, that is just useless. It's useless to claim this PCR test as meaningful. It's literally magnifying DNA so you can read it. So if you go in and get an HIV test, it has been spun or separated or circulated. And there's a technical word I'm close to. I wrote it down in my notes somewhere. So anyway, now the company that is telling the poor kids who just got out of college that are reading the scan, think of it like a scantron, okay? Think of it like you put your DNA in a machine and it gives you back a scantron. The scantron has little marks on there. You don't know what the hell the marks mean unless you have the guide, the teacher's edition guide that give you the right answers. Okay? Now, the thing that they're looking at to give you the right answer is supposedly another person's DNA. You cannot definitively say because my DNA and your DNA is producing the same protein, that means that we have the same diseases or that we look the same or anything else. In science, you got to invent a bunch of stuff. Some little filament might become part of a light bulb one day. So it's not worthless if you can one day figure out how to use it in a way where your results are going to come out with some type of integrity. But the mere fact that it sounds smart and it don't do nothing was perfect for Fauci and Gallo because they know that's over your head. And they know that the science people who do understand this either can't afford to tell you or they so damn smart they don't know how to put it in a way that makes sense. Because ain't no way in here I didn't sit here and told people that this PCR test is the same test that they use to tell people whether or not they are HIV positive. Now, mind you, in America, they might say, keep in mind, the more you spin it, the more clear the picture is. So in America, they might say, spin it 4 times, spin it 4 or 5 times. And if you see something kind of matching, go ahead, make that an HIV positive. But then you go somewhere in Europe and their standard is spin it 3 times. So America's going to have more cases. And this is how you play and manipulate the numbers. This is what you call junk science. And I am fully prepared. I could sit in the room with whoever you think is the most smartest, credible person in the world and guarantee you they cannot refute what it is that I am telling you. Look it up. Look it up.
Anything you are looking for, depending on how high you turn it up. And this is exactly what has been done. The official protocol given for the PCR testing of COVID-19 created a floodgate of false positives to skew the results. They call it asymptomatic because it's a lie. These people
Created a bunch of false positives. False positive is a very creative way of telling somebody that they are negative. You cannot be positive or negative for something that does not exist. So when they even to claim a false positive, when they ran the test, they gave back a positive result. Told you to contact all your loved ones. Then turned around. Can y'all hear me? Then turned around and told you, or probably didn't tell you, it was a false positive. Oh, by the way, it's asymptomatic. So I understand the new generation wasn't here in 93. But if you were here in 93 on this planet and you were in elementary school or older, you have to have heard all of this before. They told us anybody could have it to the point where if a kid got their knee skinned, the nurse would come with gloves before they touched them. Hey, this child could be contaminated. You don't know if they was born with it. You don't know if the mama had it. They never been tested for it. They could be a crack baby and all this other type of stuff they used to tell us. Their mama could have been an intravenous drug user. What you talking about? I know that lady. She drop them off every day. You don't know her. You don't know what she was doing 8 years ago. She might have been shooting up. Don't touch that child. Anybody can have it. The nurse can have it. She need to put gloves on. We don't know what Nurse Betty was doing last night. Everybody's a suspect. Then Magic Johnson came out, somebody who was physically healthy, asymptomatic. Any of y'all can get it. They have literally taken HIV off the pamphlet and literally put COVID in its place. And anybody who wants you to shut up instead of discussing this is part of the problem. I don't. It doesn't matter if it's delivered or not. It don't matter if it's your grandma. It don't matter if it's your cousin. It don't matter who it is. At this point, being naive, ignorant, stupid, all of that is an enemy to the situation. I would not get on here and put. I would not. Why is it that the people who are not paid to tell you the truth are the people that are supposed to prove to you when they're not lying? No, make Dr. Fauci answer these questions. How Dr. Fauci comment section is turned off. How Dr. Fauci don't have to answer these questions. Now, the fact that the PCR test doesn't test for anything, that's not even the worst part. That is just the ground and the basis for where we are, because would they say science is supposed to take over, is supposed to be more valuable than religion? Why? Because religion is just faith, and you don't have any concrete proof that any seas got parted. We ain't got no proof that certain people were slaves in Pharaoh and none of, we ain't got no proof. Every once in a while, somebody say they found some proof, but really it's mostly faith and belief. We ain't got no proof. Science is supposed to be proven based on using the scientific method. Step one, create your hypothesis. Honey, I feel like because I have been, for my Patreon people, I don't want to just give y'all any old thing. Okay. So it has been forever. And I have set up here and made these notes. And I'm telling you as I'm speaking, it's just God wants y'all to stop playing because this is too simple. Because if 1 + 1 is 2 and 2 + 2 is 4, then what the fuck is this? There's absolutely no reason for it to ever have been shut down. People need to make this their first priority. You need to take this. And I called the state legislator's office and asked them, did they know this information? The person, no, I didn't know, but you could tell he was shook because he really didn't know. That means if you don't know, that means you're doing too much of something. This is the most important thing going on in the world right now. And you need to know why it's bullshit so that you cannot be peer pressured to take it because you want to go on a damn vacation. Peter Guns, DMX. You cannot be pressured to take this because you want to drop your kids off at school or for that job. I don't know what part of market or beast that you don't have to believe in it. Fauci and them do. They want to clean this planet off and have it all to their damn self. So we're gonna go back to science, biology 101 because apparently wasn't nobody paying attention. And I know I got a C- in that damn class. And still learned enough to not be falling for this bullshit. Okay, so I have gotten all off my regular set program that I had. We're gonna divert for a second and make sure everybody understands what the scientific method is. What's up, everybody in the chat? I see y'all. I don't want to get distracted. But if you have a question, write it down because I'm sure somebody else got that question. Okay, look. There are 7 steps of the scientific method. Now, the scientific method, this is the holy grail of which this is the foundation of all science. The reason why science is supposed to be the ruler of this land and not religion. Step 1, ask a question. Step 2, perform the research. Step 3, establish a hypothesis. Step 4, test the hypothesis by conducting an experiment. Step 5, make an observation. Step 6, analyze the results and draw a conclusion. Step 7 is present the findings. Now, In that observation stage is where you're testing your control group, the group you gave the placebo to, the water or whatever that don't do nothing. And then you have your test group that you actually gave uh, the medication or whatever to, that you're testing on. And there might be different variables within that group, meaning it might be different factors, how often they take it, or their age, or the race, or whatever. You can set that group up all you want to, but you're testing it up against this control group. Now, in cases like this with these medical trials, they're supposed to start off on lab rats and animals and work their way up. Fauci and them didn't do none of that. They tested it on rats, all the rats died, and they moved it to humans with the help of the executive branch of the government. Now, we have something called theory, scientific theory, and scientific law. In order for it to be a law, that means that in this observation phase, it had to be true every time. In order for it to, if it come out true sometimes or most of the time, but not every time, then it's a theory. This is why it's the theory of gravity. Because if I stand on top of a building and I drop a red ball, the red ball is going to hit the ground every single time. So I can say it's because of gravity. But then I take a red balloon that's lighter than the ball. This invisible force, though, of gravity is not pushing the balloon to the ground. Oh, well, because helium, because it's jumping through the molecules, it don't work like that. You need to give me a definitive answer as to why gravity doesn't apply in this situation. Until then, it's a theory. You can say the earth is round all you want to. There is no law on the books that says that the earth is round. So you don't get to criticize somebody for saying, I think it's flat. It might be in a pyramid. Nobody don't know. It's all theories until somebody can prove it. You are supposed to, the people, we should have made them prove it before you start shutting anything down. You need to see it doing what they say that it does. That's a process called isolation where you can see the virus replicate. There is no such documentation or isolation. Has not happened. They cannot produce these documents. Nobody. CDC, nobody. None of these health organizations, not a scientist, nobody can produce it.
People don't have symptoms because they don't have COVID-19. They do it today because they've done it in the past and always gotten away with it. 30 years ago, Anthony Fauci, head of the NIH, made a name for himself by pushing for higher doses of the deadly drug AZT, an old cancer chemotherapy too dangerous for approval, onto AIDS patients. Kerry Mullis.
Now, I've been doing this so long that's why I said I wasn't just gonna play these videos. No, I have to stop and explain them because I've been doing this so long that the woke people, the people that have been doing this 5 years, 3, 2, it's certain things that if you ain't been paying attention to detail, you just might miss. You just heard the narrator say they gave this AZT to AIDS patients. Watch this.
Always gotten away with it. 30 years ago, Anthony Fauci, head of the NIH, made a name for himself by pushing for higher doses of the deadly drug AZT, an old cancer chemotherapy too dangerous for approval, onto AIDS patients.
No, they didn't give it to AIDS patients. They gave it to healthy people. This is very important. They gave AZT to healthy people who had no symptoms, who wanted to prevent being in this state or acquiring the syndrome, the autoimmune deficiency syndrome. Child, I don't even mean that. Autoimmune deficiency, that could be lupus. I mean, y'all have just let these people with this psychobabble science bullshit. This is the reason why women don't perform as well in the STEM departments because our brain, for us to be so illogical, our brain needs to connect the story together. And this science shit has been full of gaps. Okay. And men are better at compartmentalizing and taking down the formula and just relaying in what was asked of them. We can't do that. We got a whole but wait a minute, but why? But why? But why? But why? 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 And you have men that ask why all the time too, and those are the smartest ones, right? So look, there the gaps. I know plenty of people who are like, no, I know I'm fucking smart. I know I'm smart. I done sat in this science class. I done sat in this math class. This is not making sense. It's not making sense because it don't make sense and you want it to make sense. And they don't need you to make it make sense. They just need you to do it. Okay. So that's how they pick and figure out who is good to farm into these positions where you just come in there and do what they say and create little things and then they'll take your invention and creation and run off with it. Next thing you know, they're using your discovery to ruin the world. It ain't called mad science for nothing, honey.
Kary Mullis was hired to measure HIV in people's blood samples with his PCR. He was working under the premise that HIV was the probable cause of AIDS. But when he went looking for the proof, he found there was none. They just made it up.
What is that paper? Who do I go to for that? And I looked around. I asked a couple of virologists at that company, and they said, no, you don't have to reference. I said, I have to reference that because I don't know where that came from. How do I know that? And it turned out that nobody knew it. And I was getting really freaked about that. That's when I first started saying, they don't know. Nobody.
What he's saying is this is when he found out that nobody knew that there was no virus that was causing AIDS.
Really does. This whole thing is a big sham.
Mullis pointed out how the CDC was losing money and how the HIV/AIDS connection brought their profits back in the black, and how the men at the highest levels were all in on it. Kary Mullis knew these men were dangerous.
They don't want people like me walking up and asking them those kind of questions, and they're willing to go to great lengths to prevent that. They're out on a limb. I wouldn't want to be there with them.
But he was still outspoken. When ABC's Nightline approached him about doing a documentary on his work, Mullis convinced them to cover the HIV debate after nearly a decade of ignoring it. In a 1994 interview with Celia Farber for Spin magazine, Kary Mullis expressed how he really wanted to expose Anthony Fauci and Robert Gallo. He said that he'd be willing to chase the little bastard from his car to his office, a Nobel Prize winner trying to ask a simple question from those who spent $22 billion and killed 100,000 people. It has to be on TV. I'm not unwilling to do something like that. Unfortunately, not many people were listening back then. And on August 7th, 2019, just about 3 months before the first utterance of COVID-19, Kary Mullis, age 74, a Nobel Prize winner, inventor of the PCR test, a man who was once willing and eager to expose Anthony Fauci, quietly died of pneumonia. The timing of it all is mysterious to many of us.
So what I just really love about that video is, the validation that, because me being right. I told you guys a million times, you're going to hear people say, I believe it's real, but it's going around, but it is something, but, I don't think it's all that. What did I tell you? No, it's not any of that. This is a computer virus. Okay? It's a computer virus, and you the computer. That device in your hand makes you the transhuman robot, and that phone thinks for you now. instead of you using your own senses. And the phone, the devices, the smart devices, the TVs will tell you that it is a damn nightmare going on outside, and you walk outside, it's birds singing. Let me tell you something. If you walk outside your door and you hear birds chirping, you see cats walking around, especially if you live anywhere near some horses, huh? If you walk out and the animals is chilling, the animals is cool, you be cool. When the animals run, you run. Don't you remember when them birds was falling out the sky when the fish was turning up dead on the water? Don't think just something because it's microscopic it's gonna get past. Nothing gets past the animals. If you go outside and the birds is chirping, believe the birds over the news. Because the birds ain't being paid to lie to you. This is ridiculous. Now, we went through all of that. Let me know y'all can hear me. We went through all of that so that we could talk about Barack Obama's involvement. Now, people who are conservative and truth seekers, etc., at this point, we are tired of looking at Barack Obama. I mean, the sight of him, the very sight of him is just, he's just so cringy because he's so full of shit, right? But I want you to listen to this video. This video is 20 minutes long. You have to train yourself, ladies and gentlemen, to recognize bullshit. Because if it ain't COVID, it's the bird flu. If it ain't the bird flu, it's the Ebola. If it ain't Ebola, it's E. coli. It's your mama, it's my mama, it's something in the water, it's something in the sky, it's something in the spinach. They recalling the tomatoes. It's always going to be something. You have to watch motherfuckers lie to your face and remember their voice, their eyes, their now. If it's Barack Obama, it's a lie. If it's coming out of his mouth, it's a lie. If he got something important to say, wait till somebody else tell it to you. Don't ever take any information from somebody who you know is a liar. Ever. Same thing with Fauci. They lie too much. CNN lies. So if CNN tell you it could be harmless, it could be fireman rescues a cat out of the tree this morning. Here's a picture with him and the old ass lady. It's all make believe bullshit. That ain't no old lady. She got a mask on. It ain't even a cat. It's a bunny rabbit. Them ain't even real firemen. It's a slow ass news day. And these people have concocted this bullshit. But don't believe nothing you see from these people. So we're going to listen to Barack Obama. Okay. Sit here and do nothing but tell lies for 20 minutes. Y'all with me? 20 minutes. He going to sit here and lie. And I'm going to stop and we are going to make some observations. Let me get my notes. Dr. Fauci and Barack Obama sat here on the U.S. Department of Health YouTube and lied to each other for 20 minutes. Nobody has said anything about this horrific conversation.
Dr. Fauci, it is good to see you again.
Same here.
You've been doing amazing work for quite some time. Let me ask you this question. You're looking very fit. Have you still been out there running?
I have every day, Mr. President. Every day. Usually, well, actually, every evening. I don't get out. The day is packed, as you might imagine, but the evening is good. We get it in.
Well, you got to get it in, and the weather is improving. I should tell you that I love running outside as long.
He getting it in. Fauci getting it in because he's so black and hip that he's getting it in.
It's above 50 degrees. So,
You know, you and I are right on. I'm a wimp. Anything lower than 50, sorry.
not going to happen. I see folks in shorts running in 40-degree weather. They're insane. I know that you were involved in the various groups that helped to develop this set of vaccines. Tell us a little bit about the process for the creation of the vaccines. How is it that we were able to develop vaccines as quickly?
This is important. When you listen to this, they will never be able to fool you again. Okay? I don't know everything, but I just know enough of the basics of enough subjects to where you cannot give me some old pimp game nigga babble off the corner. The fuck? I'm getting it in. You can't give me this old jive turkey ass shit and I'm gonna buy it, okay? Well, then when kids say, Mom, Dad, why am I supposed to go to school to learn this? Every time you raise your hand and say, why do we need to know this anyway? This is why you need to know it. Because every crook in this country, every crook, well, I don't know about the planet, but every crook in this country, most of the real good ones, they've got MBAs, they've got doctorates, they've got PhDs, they've got education doctorates, they are highly very well educated, and they are funded by the government, and they are funded by these elite universities and institutions, and they are full of Fauci shit. They are full of it. And they will look you right in your face and tell you some bullshit about some splint particles, a spike protein particle. You don't know enough about science, so you don't have the confidence to say what you really thinking is a spike particle. Spike. Like the damn dog from Rugrats. More real than these spike particles. Ain't no spike particles. Ain't no particles. Other than the ones in that damn jab.
And vaccines that are as effective as they are. Because historically, it's been taking a lot longer to develop vaccines for a disease that is this severe. What was it about the process that allowed us to do that? Is it technological? Does it have to do with new methods, new systems, and how was your office involved in that process?
Okay, so that's really a critical question that I believe the general public doesn't fully appreciate. So
Barack Obama asked Dr. Fauci, why is your vaccine so effective? Why is your glow mop better than any other mop? Why is your crock pot? Why is it that your air fryer is the best there is in a, why is your vaccine so effective? Oh, well, I've got an answer for you, and it's an answer that Americans don't appreciate. We don't appreciate it, Fauci. What's the answer for why it's so
within just hours of getting that second shot, and he died within
so
a matter
effective?
of days. We're learning more tonight about the mysterious death of a man who died just hours after getting the COVID-19 vaccine.
Local woman says her mother died 2 days ago after receiving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
And now she believes the dose is what caused her mother's sudden death.
State health officials are investigating after an elderly man died shortly after receiving a COVID vaccine.
Last month, a Tennessee woman who was left partially paralyzed after getting her second dose of the Pfizer vaccine.
Okay, so you get my point. We could do this all day. This very effective vaccine. How'd you come up with it, Fauci? You genius. Freaking genius.
the virus was identified and sequenced and made known to the public in the first week in
Sequence is the word I was looking for when I was talking about the replication process. In order for them to magnify the DNA so they can see it, it's called a sequence. So he says the day it was sequenced, sequencing the virus. It sounds like something. All right, so you know what a sequence is. The sequence is literally them just magnifying your DNA. He just threw it out there like it was some scientific shit that happened that had even something to do with a virus. You can sequence the DNA. That ain't got nothing to do with whether or not there's a virus in it.
January of 2020. And 11 months later, we had vaccine going in people's arms. That is totally unprecedented. It usually, as you say correctly, years before you get a successful vaccine.
Now, that should just be a red flag, period. What I have also noticed about people who are habitual liars and who are lying about things that are really, really horribly unbelievable, what they try to do is they try to preempt your questions and rebuttals by bringing up all the bad stuff first and telling you what to think about it.
What is hidden behind that is that for decades prior to that, the investment in biomedical research in developing new platform technologies, the mRNA techniques that we worked on for years before SARS-CoV-2, the using structure-based vaccine design that had been going on for HIV, we transferred that technology to show that if you get the spike protein, which is that part of the virus that binds to the receptor, if you get it in the right conformation and you freeze it there by making mutations.
See, what you got to do is you got to take the hybermalamus, okay? You're going to amalgamate it. And then what you're going to do through the transgression is you are going to traverse and transform the particles into something that is expendable, but that is also receiving the electricity from the veracity. What the fuck? This man did not say nothing. He did not say, I know that shit sounds science-y. Okay? That nothing that came out of that man's mouth had nothing to do with what we're talking about. It is complete babble bullshit.
The spike protein, which is that part of the virus that binds to the receptor.
Also notice he admitted what I just said to you, that this is all recycled HIV bullshit.
We transfer that technology to show that if you get the spike protein, which is that part of the virus that binds to the receptor, if you get it in the right conformation and you freeze it there by making mutations, it's enormously more immunogenic than the regular protein.
Oh, okay.
You recall when you visited the Vaccine Research Center with me here on the campus, it's the same investigators that I introduced you to were the ones who were working on HIV, who switched over, used their technology to develop the immunogen for COVID-19, and then all of a sudden,
I got on here and told y'all that these people was using the HIV bullshit on you and calling it COVID. And I thought I was giving y'all some groundbreaking secret Illuminati information. I did not. This is from Dr. Fauci's mouth. Can I get a Kiki? You was right. Kiki, you told us so. Kiki, thank you for this life-saving information, because I could have been out here with these people believing this shit.
everything took off. So when you say it was quick, well, it started back when you were in the White House.
Yeah.
So and
it started when you were in the White House. Tell on them some more, Dr. Fauci.
Then
after 2 decades, you were an overnight success.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Then Obama says, "Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. You was here when I got here. You've been here for 2 decades."
Exactly.
But I think, just to convert this into layperson's terms, essentially, rather than going through a trial and error process where you see the disease, almost for the first time, you're trying to figure out what does it do, how does it work, what kinds of immunizations might work against it. Here, you already had a bunch of structures in place that allowed you to both pinpoint what exactly the disease was doing and also figure out with much greater precision, much more quickly,
what
kind of vaccine that would be effective and tailored to
Okay,
this particular disease.
okay, Obama. Now, this is a very eloquent man. Can we agree? Can we agree with that? Can we agree that Barack Obama speaks so well, as you white people have eloquently have repeatedly pointed out? Why is Barack Obama stutter, 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 stutter? What is going on? Like Joe and Chico DeBarge, what is happening? Huh? Let's go back and let's break down whatever the hell that was this man was trying
What
to say.
kinds of uh, immunizations might work against it? Uh, Here, you already had a bunch of structures in place that allowed you to both pinpoint what exactly the disease was doing and also figure out with much greater precision, much more quickly, kind of vaccine that would be effective and tailored to this particular disease. Is that accurate?
Okay, so what this horrible actor Barack Obama is trying to tell you, what he is trying to say, oh, Dr. Fauci, it is so wonderful. You had this wonderful expert team of HIV virologists that were all over this, that had completely figured out how HIV worked and how to detect it. And this the virus that popped up out of nowhere, this respiratory type of virus that came out of nowhere, just so happens to be exactly like HIV. Close enough anyway, where you can just plug in this data over here. And we're not going to talk about sexual transmission and how HIV transmission, according to you all, required actual contact. And we're not going to ask you the $1,000,000 question, which if this question's on your mind, you should be a journalist. The follow-up question for this should be, well, Fauci, since you know so damn much, how come you have not created a vaccine for HIV in all these years? How come these people have worked on this one project for so long and they could not create a vaccine for it? And so many people have died all over the world from AIDS and HIV, right? More than the coronavirus even. Why don't you have a vaccine for that? Yet you would hire those same incompetent people to work on the COVID project, and then magic presto change, you got a vaccine in record breaking time. I mean, this is just so magical. You know, it's something to say for people who, now, y'all at work, busy, you got things to do. I get it. At some point, though, everybody has to, come on now, has to have taken the time to listen to this magical shit. Really listen to what they're telling you. They're not saying nothing. Do y'all tolerate people in your personal life to look at you and just say shit that don't make no sense? And then y'all just be like, okay, well, I ain't got no friends, because if it don't make no sense, I'm gonna say, what? That is bullshit.
That's perfectly accurate, Mr. President. But there's also another thing, that scientific base that allowed it to happen, the extraordinary investment that was made in Operation Warp Speed to essentially get 6 companies involved, essentially bankroll a lot of what they did, pre-purchase doses so that you could get them produced before we even knew the vaccine worked.
Now, Operation Warp Speed is Trump's thing. So as soon as he said Operation Warp Speed, you see Obama's head drop. Like, don't be giving him no credit. But you shouldn't want the credit for this, Obama, because this is terrible. And Trump, eventually you're going to have to come off the golf course and explain to us what was part of your master plan, because right now everybody's getting the side eye.
Allowed us to, once we hit the ground, boom, it was there.
You know, historically, there have been concerns that when you get to clinical trials, meaning when you actually test vaccines on live humans, that that is a long process.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that both that it's safe and that it's effective.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been some concerns about, like, well,
It's usually a long process to make sure it's safe and effective. They continue to talk about this vaccine like it has just been a complete success. They just ain't had no complaints. How did you do this?
Were these vaccines adequately tested? Did we go through the normal process that we went through to figure out whether a vaccine should be widely distributed? And an issue that I think is on the minds of people more recently, was there a broad enough cross-section of people, including people of color, women as well as men, old as well as young, so that you had some sense of whether the vaccines were effective?
Now, we just talked about this when we went over the scientific method, right? So these will be the people in your variable groups, and you would have them separated based on gender, based on race, if that's what the study calls for. Here, Barack Obama and Dr. Fauci are going to start telling us that they are doing us colored folk a favor by focusing their research basically primarily on us.
Across the population, equally for various.
And he just told you what testing it means is giving it to live humans, is what came out of his mouth. There's no other form of way to research this than to inject it. And the only people they want to inject it on is the people of color.
People, whether there might be side effects for some people and not others. Tell us about that process, basically to test it out before we put it out there.
Yeah, it was extraordinarily well tested. Let me give you the numbers. In the Moderna product, we tested it on 30,000 people. In the Pfizer, 44,000 people. And on the J&J, 40,000 people. And one of the reasons things went so quickly is that we had so much infection in the community at the time that we tested it.
It went well. We tested it on 40,000 people, 30,000 people. He didn't tell you how many people died, how many people survived, how many people got sick, the results of the study. This is why you don't let nobody bring up no study to you until they can get where the study at. Print it out. Do not read no headline of no study and act like it validates your point in some type of way. We need to know the sample size. We need to know who your population was that you tested it on. Did you test something on a bunch of healthy teenagers? Did you test it on people who already had these pre-existing conditions that you blaming all these deaths on? And what were the results? Which he's not going to tell you. Fucking spoiler alert.
Remember when we were doing the Zika, when we started testing it, all of the infections went down, and you go for years before you can prove it works. Here, it was like 3.
If Zika is going down by itself, then why does it matter what you need the vaccine for?
And
these people are drug dealers. Okay, like Drake said, I'm a pop star, not a doctor.
We were there because so many people got infected in the placebo group compared to the vaccine group that we knew it worked. That's the first thing. The secondly, we really went out of our way to.
Now, Dr. Fauci just told you the reason why the research came out that lets us know that this here trial is effective is because the people that we put in a placebo group, meaning we didn't give them anything, they came up with more cases of COVID. But we just went over your PCR test. There are 5 different ways that they have used to determine whether or not somebody has the Cornelius virus. Okay, there are 5 different ways. The 5 ways are the antibody test. The antibody test is unreliable. Why? Because antibodies means that a virus was probably there, but now the antibodies are now present because they have defeated the virus that was there and present prior to. I only took biology 101 in high school. I took chemistry in high school. I took biology in college. That's it. Everything we're talking about is in that class. Now, antibodies means the virus is gone. So that's not reliable way of telling you. Now there may be some complex algorithm, carry the one step, one hop, two stumps, two hops, three stumps, where an antibody is present and the virus is also present. But because that is not the case every single time, that means it's not what? A fact. This is people lives you playing with and livelihoods you playing with. You got the AIDS or do you don't? You ain't sort of pregnant. Am I pregnant or I'm not pregnant? Is it a positive pregnant? No pregnant, yes pregnant, no pregnant. Don't nobody want to sort of have no AIDS. Sort of got kind of cancer. Is or is it ain't. You cannot find that out with the antibody test. You cannot find that out with the PCR test, which we discovered prior to because the PCR test don't do shit, but perform as a magnifying glass for you to see some other shit that don't even fucking mean nothing to you. Okay, and he won, and he won a fucking Nobel Peace Prize for that shit. The other way they have diagnosed you is with symptoms, flu-like symptoms. And if you were here in the 90s, you remember that flu-like symptoms was the way that you knew that you had HIV. A cough, chills, swollen lymph nodes. Then there's these test kits that the CDC has been putting around. Now, we don't know what the damn technology is for the test kit. All we know is on the test kit, the CDC says they are not making any claims that the test kit is valid and that the test kit is not for diagnostic. I'm sorry. The test kit is not for diagnostic purposes. Okay? And it is for experimental use only. So those are the 5 different ways. So I don't give a fuck that your auntie told you she had the COVID. No, she didn't. You cannot operate. Y'all not gonna survive in 5D. This is a whole nother. I don't even feel like going that whole nother dimension. We are in another dimension. You ain't gonna survive this shit. If you allow the people who make the rules for them to break their own rules. They made this bullshit up and they made me study it. They made me study it and they made me pay for it. And they made me pay for it. If you don't learn this, you need to go get you a job at McDonald's. That's what they told me. If I don't learn this shit, well, I learned it. And you don't get to sit here and tell people we don't have now one way of definitively telling you whether or not you have something, but we're going to turn around and mandate that you fix it or else.
Get an equitable demographic representation. And it wasn't easy. We had to go out and really get leaders in the community to get people who they trusted to say, go get vaccinated. So, for example, when we started off, the relative number of African Americans was relatively low, but by pushing it, we got it up to about 10%. A little bit less, because 13% is the demographic representation of African Americans. We did better with Hispanics. Hispanics are about 18% of the population. We got up to 20% Hispanics in the thing. So if you put them together, about 30+% for minority populations. So that was really a critical point that you made, because now
Houston, we have a fucking problem and we need to abort this mission because we've been feeding these niggas grape soda and hot fucking Cheetos since the crack epidemic, and they was all supposed to listen to Monica and all the rest of these singers and whoever else and go out and get that vaccination. And we only have 10% of the Black community who has bought into it, and we only have 20% of the Hispanic community, which honey ain't saying shit because you know it's more Hispanics than it is anybody anything else. So that 20% of Hispanics is probably a smaller. Look, that don't mean we don't even know what that means. Put it like that. We don't even know. They just put a question mark. So 70%. Now they have told you that 50%, 50 to 60% of Americans have received the vaccine. That's a goddamn lie. Because 50% of Americans of adults still believe that Donald Trump is their president. And the numbers ain't adding up. Okay? And you sure don't see Trump out here talking about give me the damn jab neither. So that's a lie. But let's just say 50% of the whole population. Now this is algebra 1. 50% of the population has taken this shit. 70% of the 50% is white. Child, it's all fake. It came from a lab in Wuhan. Dr. Fauci did it. He paid the bad lady. They paid to do this. They was out here. I wasn't. Ugh. We done gave these motherfuckers Lil Nas X. Okay, they got 2 for 1 Big Macs. Why is it that 10% of the population that we are trying to get rid of has taken the damn mark of the beast and 70% white people? White people. We was not telling y'all to go get the vaccine. What are you doing? We trying to preserve our position here. We're trying to preserve our Anglo alliances as long as we can. Remember that Hispanics is a question mark. There is no living soul that knows how many Hispanic people there are living in this country. I think we could bet on that. Okay, so Whitey's got a fucking got a ballpark it. Karen and all of her kids lined up at the vaccine mobile to get shot up when they was not talking to y'all.
To tell everyone
Oops.
that the vaccine was tested, works, is safe and effective in all of these groups. So that's a really important point.
I had the chance to study and read about the results of these clinical trials. It was remarkable to see how effective the vaccines were across populations. And as a result, I felt very comfortable, not only.
11 spoke with a local woman who says she lost feeling in much of her body just hours after getting Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine.
The Orange County Coroner's Office is investigating the death of a woman who passed away several days after getting her second Moderna vaccine. The family says the mother and grandmother was healthy before she got her shot, and that her sudden death came as a shock.
And it was the scariest thing in the world to go to sleep completely fine, walking, to wake up at 1:30 in the morning and not be able to move at all.
We began tonight, though, with a West Michigan mother's death 11 days after receiving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
States all around the nation now, including here in the Commonwealth, putting a pause on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
This comes after report.
This is the man that our grandparents told us that we had to vote for, and all of this shit. They was out here crying and tripping over each other and arguing people over this man who sat here and told you that he read a report where there were effective results. When there is study article after article after article after article to where the vaccine makers, the CDC, and everybody is trying to back up off of this, because what was not supposed to happen was people were not supposed to be able to correlate the vaccine to the deaths. Y'all were supposed to blame the deaths on COVID. But the thing is that this is a boomer plan, and us millennials is on their ass. It's some Gen Xers that's on their ass. It's some OG boomers that's been blowing the whistle. You know what I'm saying? And then the younger generation with the media. I am really astonished because I be on the TikTok with the tweens. I am astonished at how trusting the young people are of media and propaganda. I don't know why I'm astonished, but they act like they know fucking everything else. If you know it's 75 genders, then why you don't know that Dr. Fauci is full of shit? Which shows since you such a smart one.
Getting the vaccine myself, making sure Michelle got the vaccine, making sure Michelle's mom, who is older, obviously, got the vaccine because she's more vulnerable.
Now, I have searched the internet. I could be wrong. But I could have sworn that they had said that Michelle Obama's mama died last year, was it? Or the year before that? And there was the conversation about the will that said Michael Obama. But now the internet doesn't talk about that. The internet says the woman is alive. But then I went on Snopes because Snopes was debunking the will thing, right? And because they was like, this ain't true that the will said Michelle Obama. But I felt like, why didn't they debunk it by just saying Michelle Obama's mama not even dead? So am I tripping? Is this the Mandela effect? What is going on? Did you hear that Michelle Obama's mama died because she didn't got the vaccine? Now, Democrats will vote for you after death. I'm sure they will vaccinate you after death too. So it don't mean that it's a false statement.
Encouraging everybody in my family and my friends and people in my circle and staff to get the vaccine. And yet we've still seen people who are concerned about the vaccine. And I think it's important to note that some of that hesitance has to do with people understandably always wondering, do I want to put something in my body that wasn't there before?
Right.
How safe is it? What I've tried to emphasize is that we now have millions of doses that have been administered. And the fact that we've seen almost no adverse consequences is actually pretty remarkable.
This interview is from 5 days ago. This interview is from 5 days ago, y'all. I'm working off 2 phones. I got a Bluetooth, and I need some equipment. Okay.
Of a possible rare disorder, including blood clots found in 6 women. 1 died. And we are following breaking news tonight. We have just learned the death of a Virginia woman is linked from the Virginia Department of Health.
Concerns around the safety of the AstraZeneca vaccine have been realised here in Australia, with medical experts confirming the death of a Central Coast woman is likely linked to the jab.
The Facebook picture that captured Augusta Toriaco's delight at getting a COVID vaccine. The 55-year-old Italian posting, "Fatto, done," on March the 11th.
I mean, did I make my point? Because this video is like 10 minutes long. I've got this perfectly queued up. And it's 10 minutes long of adverse reactions to vaccines. Okay. So your grandmama favorite president just said that there has been no adverse reactions to this vaccine. Okay. This nigga is what we call a black ass lie. That I'm sorry. He just told you that's called a bold face black ass lie when somebody sit here and I can't even did you hear that? Barack Obama has not even heard of. Let's rewind that shit. Let's rewind it.
We now have millions of doses that have been administered. And the fact that we've seen almost no adverse consequences is actually pretty remarkable.
It's fucking remarkable. It's remarkable that you haven't seen any adverse reactions when everybody has seen adverse reaction. And here on my cue cards, you guys can't see. Now, Friday, I've got one hell of a show planned for you tomorrow. Okay. And I'll have my 3x5 cards. Okay. But you can't see them, but you can hear them. Okay. Now, I don't even need to read it, but I wrote down on my card here 75% of the people who die from the shot die within 3 days of receiving it. But Obama has not heard of any of this. Of any of this. I don't know how we can get through to our grandmothers because this man, with all this smooth talking, light skin bullshit, he has sucked in all the black grannies, okay, along with the pastors, which Dr. Fauci is going to later on tell you that he didn't pay your grandma pastor to tell her to get the vaccine. Let's press play.
When you look at history, early on, the polio vaccine obviously was an extraordinary human achievement.
5 days ago. That's when they posted it. Now, ain't no telling when it was recorded. And quite frankly, how do we know this is even Obama and Dr. Fauci? Okay, this could be Mickey and Minnie Mouse in disguise. Who knows anything around here? But this was posted 5 days ago. And this is on the U.S. Department of Health, okay, YouTube channel. And I have not seen a more comical crock of shit for I mean, Saturday Night Live. They should just play this clip because this is.
But at the beginning, there were adverse effects for a small but significant portion of the population that ended up, really being harmed as a result of the vaccine. In this case,
a small but significant. I just want to let you know, Schmeckle, that I stole a small but significant amount of money out your wallet. You know I ain't talking about $1, huh? You know I ain't talking about $5. What the fuck is small but significant? 20? 50? 100? Is relative to what? To how much money you got. So you just told us that there were 30,000 people in just one demographic alone that you tested this vaccine, right? So what is the small but significant percentage of 30,000 people that had a reaction, Obama? Are you going to tell me? Hell to the no.
We now have a pretty extraordinary body of evidence that these vaccines work and they are safe, for just about every conceivable combination of people that you might want.
All demographic and all ages, right?
Every demographic and all ages. So,
so at this point, Barack Obama and Dr. Fauci must have been here when me and C. Ali was selling them beeswax wraps. When we was like, and it worked for everything. And if you ain't even got no fruit, you could use it as a hat. Okay, you could use the beeswax wraps as a drum. Okay, you could use it for anything. Like, this is an infomercial. This is a marketing, and we tried it on every population. If you're a little person, don't worry, you can take it. If you're a mermaid, take it. Bigfoot, take it. If you're 7 feet tall, take it. If you're 4'5", take it. If you're a child, if you're old, if you're young, we've tried it on every single population of every race and creed. If you are a cannibal, take it. It will not have any adverse reactions. This is the science that they use to turn our families against us. That's why I say fuck them family members. We don't need them because they didn't even try hard. They didn't even try hard. I tested it out every day. This soap, it gets stains out of everything. Everything. It get blood out of cotton. It get red wine out of suede. Everything. Leather, get paint off leather, any kind of stuff. I mean, there's no parameters. This is magic soap, huh?
As you're having conversations, you're going out there, you're talking to a lot of people. What have you found to be some of the most common concerns, and what are the most effective responses to the concerns that people have raised about going ahead and getting the vaccine?
Well, I think it relates a lot to what you said of people have.
It's not my intention to talk down on people and make people feel stupid, but then at some point I feel that people need to know that there is a threshold. If your spidey senses has not been tingling since these people started talking, your perception is off, and I don't even know how to fix it. Okay, but you were not on the woke side because these two idiots are not even good at what they're doing. They are not fooling anybody who gives a fuck. And the masses literally ganged up on the people who had the answers and forced the world to shut down. The food is still jacked up. It's still a food shortage. The milk going bad early. People have lost their businesses, completely decimated the economy, not just here, but around the world. And they didn't even use any concrete science. This shit is worse than the AIDS argument. At least y'all had grainy video and shoddy technology to hide behind. This is high definition, but y'all can't see this bullshit and it's in 4K. And you can't tell that line and you in 4K?
More of a wait and see attitude. And they want to make sure that enough people have gotten vaccinated that they feel that they're observing now. And as you said, it's extraordinarily safe. We now have over 140 million people have received at least one dose. So you get out and you explain to people, what are the areas that you're concerned? Are you concerned whether they're safe? You give them the data that's safe. Are you concerned that it worked?
There is no data that is safe, sir. You just give them the data that's safe. And where is that? Now we are back to what we were supposed to be doing before we started issuing it out to the public. Where is this safety data? There's no safety data on this vaccine, and guess what, friends? There's no safety data on any of the other ones. So your favorite politicians and people who come out here and tell you, I'm not anti-vax. I just want you to have all the information and you can make the decision for yourself. It's disingenuous. They're trying to stay in play. Hey, I get it. People got to feed their kids. They got to feed their family and the lifestyle and all that type of shit. But what is it worth? You gonna be the last man on earth riding around in a Hummer while everybody else is dead from some fucking virus? Like, who is gonna be envious of you if everybody dies? But the MMR and all these other inoculations that they force your kids to get and all this other shit, you convinced yourself somebody's safety tested. None of it's been safety tested. And everybody's lying to you.
The interesting thing, in the real world, following the trial, it works even better than in the trial. Because usually when you're in the pristine conditions of a trial, things seem to do better until you get out in the real world. When you get out in the real world, it's even better. The thing that we have found right now, which is looking like it's becoming quite successful, is the outreach by using trusted messengers. So we have a thing called the COVID-19 Community Core, where we've employed sports figures, celebrities, really important, Mr. President, clergy, particularly among the African-American population. They really trust their clergy. So what we've done is that...
Now, play this to your grandparents and really have a conversation because this is ridiculous. Okay. Now, what we need to do, and let's put this on our to-do list, and this will be in the part 2 of this video that will be available on Patreon. It was an act of God that y'all got this, because this was supposed to be a Patreon only, and the playback will be on the Patreon only because I don't want them to take my channel down. Okay. Patreon is $1. I'm not trying to, Fauci y'all. Now, this community core group that he's talking about, this has your rappers, your singers, and your clergy in on it. So at some point, we need to look up this community core program and get that list of names. Okay? And we make sure that we never forget. These people that are on this list of names, everybody in this community core program, clergy, and everyone, give a fuck who it is. We've got to cancel them. We've got to publish the list like we did with the Epstein group. We've got to come for their necks. The thing that we have over them is our numbers. They cannot censor everybody. They can't kill everybody. They cannot stop everybody. This is why they want to drastically and dramatically bring the numbers down, because the technology has exposed the bullshit. So at this point, the people that are buying it are not of even really are not even the people who are threatening to their system. Okay, you see Rand Paul, and the deception is built on levels. So the Congress people that mean well, that are trying to take the country back to normalcy, they believe that there's a virus. These people majored in political science. This is why I keep talking about these majors and the education. If you guys are going to college, think about it. Don't waste your electives on dumb shit, basket weaving. Maybe a little bit, but make sure that you've got the basics to math and your science and that type of shit, so that these people cannot put you in a triple cross with this foolish bullshit. Because they are absolutely not saying anything. And then they are going to celebrities now just to prove that what you're saying is not scientific. Anytime these dumbass entertainers can repeat it, you know it ain't science. Because they don't know shit from shoe polish. And your granny's pastor sold everybody out. And you wonder why your transgender kids, your kids with the most body dysmorphia, you wonder why all the child molestation and all this other shit is coming up out the church. The people who didn't grow up in the church have experienced a far less childhood trauma and sexual abuse than people who did, particularly in my generation. And most of us were not watched. We were all pretty much latchkey kids. The kids who were getting molested is the kids who was going to church. Your clergymen have been in bed with the satanic cabal, and they have been selling you out to them, and they've been doing it the whole time. TD Jakes told you to go get the vax. So look at what he's produced. Look at the traumatic shit his own kid. I mean, come on now. It's time for us to just stop. And you can't avoid these people. And I don't mean that you'll never be entertained by them again. But a snake is a snake. You just need to know that you're watching a snake.
We reached out to these individuals, given them a lot of information so that they can then go out. Like, I have been on more discussions and podcasts and discussions with Black churches, with people like Jesse Jackson, with people like Al Sharpton, and over again we're doing that. And it has an effect, because the hesitancy among African Americans has dramatically diminished over the last 4 months. So
if Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are selling you out today, they've been selling you out for the past 40 years.
Depends on what the group is. You've got to address it. You've got to give them the information and trust that they're smart enough to make the decision themselves.
Well, look, within the African American community, there is a reason why there is probably greater suspicion with respect to the medical establishment. Oftentimes you'll hear, cited past failures of the medical community to address African American specific diseases and issues. I think that the thing that I've tried to emphasize is that in a situation in which African Americans are more vulnerable to this disease because of underlying conditions like diabetes or obesity or high blood pressure that are higher than the general population, it is that much more imperative for us to take advantage of a vaccine that is much more effective than the flu vaccines that
by far
much more effective than the flu vaccines that we take periodically. And by the way, my personal experience, I know people have wondered about side effects. So I got the Pfizer vaccine, and like a lot of people, the first shot, I had no symptoms. Second shot, I got it in the evening. The next morning, I had some flu-like symptoms. Wasn't feeling that good. And that meant that the vaccine was working, because essentially the way a vaccine works, it is triggering a response in your body helping your body recognize, this is something that can make you sick. This is something that you have to worry about. So it's almost a trial run in terms of getting your body prepared to fight off this virus. And, I was laid up in bed.
And that's not even at all how y'all said this works. Y'all said that this particular one is changing your RNA and replacing your natural immune system, whatever. Try.
On the couch for about 6-8 hours. I took a Motrin, and after that, I felt fine. And it was a pretty good excuse for me just to sit around and loaf around, which I don't always get a chance to do. Young people, I think, have been a little more hesitant, in part because they felt invincible. And their attitude is, look, if I get it, it's not going to be that serious. It's not like grandma in the nursing home where I understand why she would need to get a shot. If I get it, it's just like a bad cold, and I'll get it for a couple of days, and then I'll have some antibodies in there, and I'll be all set. One of the things that you may want to address that we've all been observing is that these viruses, like COVID-19, mutate. And we've seen variations, the so-called British mutation, Brazil, South Africa, variations of this.
I mean, he can't even get this bullshit out because he can't even believe this coming out of his mouth. They told us HIV was mutating too. Remember that?
Basic disease that are viruses. More easily transmittable, more lethal, and appear to have a more severe impact potentially on young people. So talk to me a little bit about why it's important.
The viruses mutate, and when the mutation comes, the mutation gonna be worse than the regular virus just for the young people because they thought they was invincible.
Important for young people.
That's not science.
Well, not to think that they're invulnerable in this situation, that this is not simply a matter of either an old person's disease or a bad flu that they'll get over without any side effects.
Okay, so there's two issues there that we need to address. The first is what you've touched upon. Even though statistically, to be honest and transparent, the chances of a young, healthy person in their 20s or 30s who are otherwise healthy of getting infected and getting significantly ill is very, very low, extremely low compared to the elderly or those with underlying conditions.
Right.
However, I myself have seen patients that we've taken
underlying conditions like car accidents, hit by a lightning bolt. Excuse me.
Care of in the NIH Clinical Center who are young, who had an underlying condition like hypertension or diabetes or obesity, who felt, hey, I'm young, I'm okay. They got seriously ill. So you're not completely out of danger. Don't fool yourself. That's the first thing. The second point that you made is also quite true, is that some of the variants that are going around now are more transmissible, more lethal, and they're infecting younger people. But the other important point that I think is equally as important is even though, let's say, a young person gets infected and has absolutely no symptoms, they say, so what's the big deal? Autopsy, no foul, no autopsy. The way we used to say in basketball. But that's not the case, because even though you feel fine, you are being part of the transmission cycle. So you could be infected and then inadvertently and even innocently infect someone who then infects someone who is someone's mother who has breast cancer on chemotherapy, or someone's friend who's obese and gets into trouble. So just because you don't get infected, that doesn't mean you're not part of the problem, because you're propagating the outbreak. So I appeal to, and I hope I get to people, that one, you have your own personal responsibility to protect yourself. But you really have a societal responsibility to the community, because you don't want to be part of the problem, you want to be part of the solution. And that's what young people need to hear, that it isn't okay, no symptoms, no problem. It's more than that.
Right. For a lot of folks,
Child. Sacrifice your youth, your reproduction, in the next 50 years on this planet so that you don't possibly infect the stupid ass older generation that put us in the trick bag and allowed losers like this to have power and authority in this country in the first place. Child, please. Child, please. Let me tell you what you don't owe them. That let me tell you what generation they did shit to protect another generation, and that's them boomers. That crap has slid completely downhill, and we do not owe the boomers a damn thing. If there really was a plague going on, I would not get vaccinated to save the boomer generation. No, I would not. I'm sorry, I would not. Y'all did this to us in more ways than one. And quite frankly, we don't even get to enjoy none of the perks of this damn planet that y'all was so busy hoarding. It's not like we out here having a fabulous time. It's not like we out here filling up our groceries basket off $20 and filling up our gas tank off $10 and buying 4-bedroom houses for $80,000, $60,000. It ain't like we living rolling in the dough like y'all in foreign cars, multiples, sending our kids to these high-end schools. I mean, somebody just started. It's almost as if somebody just started printing money out of nowhere, and y'all just started spending it like there was no tomorrow. And you didn't give a damn what Fauci or nobody else was doing because y'all was having just a funky ass good time. Now it has come back to bite everybody in their ass. These two have not presented nobody with any scientific evidence. They don't have a chart. They ain't got a graph. They're laughing and giggling like they are selling squeegee mops. What the fuck is so funny? If people was dying in the streets of this shit, you would be sitting here laughing and joking. You're laughing and joking because this is a propaganda marketing piece. This is a commercial. This is bullshit. And that's what's so funny.
If they don't have a regular primary care physician, maybe they're part of a population that doesn't have access to a computer to sign up. It's confusing sometimes to figure out, all right, how easy is it for me to get a vaccine? I know you've been working with the administration on this issue. A lot of it has to do with logistics. And we confidently say at this point that if someone wants to get a vaccine, they can get it, and that we're reaching out to communities, even those that are not wired and plugged in and as sophisticated in terms of accessing medical care.
If you are out in rural areas in the middle of nowhere with no internet, we're going to roll up on you and still try to get you this bullshit.
Others?
President Biden has made it a major priority of his for equity. We've established an equity task force. We have people in the White House who only think about equity. And he's done 3 or 4 things to get accessibility to particularly underserved populations. One,
I have no idea. When he says we started an equity task force and equity is important, I understand equity in terms of like having equity in like a property, something that is accumulating some type of like intrinsic value. I don't know what the fucking equity task force is. And I don't know if this does anybody have a clue? I mean, now he's gonna tell us these initiatives they have going on, but how does that build equity?
He's put community vaccine centers in areas that are demographically representative of minorities. Number 2, we have federally qualified health centers that we now have in those areas. We've stocked pharmacies in those areas that generally are not particularly accessible, and we have mobile units going out into those rural areas, particularly in the South, where you don't have accessibility. And then what we've done, we've mobilized vaccinators, people, retired physicians and nurses, the military, to go out and do it. So we are trying.
They will come to your job and vaccinate you. It's that serious.
Very hard. We're making equity a major part of the vaccine program.
Just to sum up, these vaccines are extraordinarily safe.
Okay.
They are proven. It is important for all of us to get a vaccine, because just because half of us get it, that doesn't wipe out this disease. We need to get the vast majority of people to get it, and it's available.
Okay.
So we need everybody to go out there, get informed, do your homework. If you have some hesitancy or concerns, those questions can be answered. But if we want to get back to the point where all of us can enjoy each other's company and go to concerts and restaurants, and most importantly, hug our family and spend time with them safely, whether you are young or old, now's the time for you to get that vaccine. Is that a fair summary?
Couldn't have said it better. Perfect. Absolutely.
It's wonderful to be with you again, Dr. Fauci. Thanks for the extraordinary work you've been doing.
That's absolutely unacceptable. I mean, if this were a commercial for a medical treatment, they would have been required to list the side effects. 44 just sat here and told you there are hardly any. I mean, so minuscule. Such a success. So wonderful. Hey, I got this crack for sale. No, let's use something worse than that, harder. Because crack don't kill. Heroin. Got this heroin. Really, is that good? Oh, it's good. It's wonderful. I mean, it is just like flat out. It's just this the best. How you? Anybody die from it? Anybody OD? I mean, it's a couple people that didn't know what they was doing. You know, they didn't know how to handle their drugs. You know how that go. You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't that many. It wasn't that many. Mm-mm. Well, how is it? What kind of high? It's the best. It's wonderful. It's gonna give you what you looking for. A euphoric feeling. That's what it's gonna get you. You got anxiety? That's what it's gonna do. What else you need? That's what it's gonna do. It's magical because what it does is it formulates with your chemistry in your body, and what it's gonna do is it's gonna absorb the neutrons and the protons, and then that is gonna connect to your hypothalamus gland, and that is connected to the synapses in your brain, and your brain is gonna communicate to the lipinoids in the heroin that's going to tell your body how to experience the drug. Like, I don't even know how to give you an example of how full of shit this is because I don't think there is anything more ridiculous than this. This is Obama. This, I don't know, Obama. This is a new low. Like, this is the lowest of the low because. And if you go back and look at 90s culture, even before that, but especially in the 90s, and the signaling, the symbols that the elites have been using, the conversation they've been having with each other that has been over our heads but in our face. This is what they've been talking about. This is the big hoorah, okay? But it's not working according to plan because it's not enough Negroes on it. It's not enough Hispanics on it. And it's out of control. They can't control the narrative because nothing's adding up. And all of the people who they've been paying, all these politicians, conservative and Republican, have been taking money from people they shouldn't have been taking money from. And they have helped these people take an inch, take an inch, take an inch, take an inch, take an inch. Well, now those are the people who were getting called. Dr. Fauci come Skype in these interviews, and then he cuts off his phone and skips off about his business. It's not the same as a senator. You know, your local representatives and your national representatives, like, they got to answer their phone. The assistant, somebody, their phone is ringing. Y'all shut you shut the whole country down. You shut the economy down. You gave preferential treatment. You said Walmart could do it, but I couldn't do it. DoorDash could do it, but I couldn't do it. You said we couldn't go outside, inside. We miss birthdays, we miss holidays, we miss graduations, we miss funerals. All based on some, because the spike protein and the lipinoids and the neck bone connected to the hip bone. This shit is not science. And they have dumbed down the public. They have affected our education. They got these kids in these schools are so worried about sex. They so damn horny. They so worried about sex and being sexy and being desirable. They're so worried about all of that, but they can't find any value in understanding the information that they will need. And if you're gonna have some junk information in your brain, let the junk be the foundation and basis to a particular discipline. Let that be the junk. Don't just sit here and know all the entertainers and you know all the athletes and you know all the gossip shit. But then if somebody asks you a question about the scientific method, you are drawing a blank because you're not going to survive like that. Some of y'all might have to go back to the drawing board and start over again. The education is important. These pieces of paper, you know, the black community hate education. This is why the black community is under target like this. Because with the education it does at least is make it where you've learned another language. I speak that language. I'm not fluent, but I speak enough of that language to know that that was some bullshit. When you get a bachelor's degree, when the degree says, you know, these are all the rights and liberties appertaining to, or some of some other bullshit, I ain't figured out what the hell that mean neither. But you now speak the bachelor's bullshit language. Have a bachelor's in bullshit, okay? And you can understand things on the bachelor of bullshit level. So when the bachelors of bullshit artists come out here, you can speak their language and you know whether or not you want to participate in that particular realm of bullshit, unlike the layman, that it may be over their heads. Now, when you have a bachelor's in bullshit, there's no rapper or some YouTuber that's then come out here and then brainwash you into some bullshit because your educational level is above that. Then you can get you a master's in bullshit. Okay. And now the bachelor's in bullshit literally say BS degree. Then you can get you a master's in this bullshit. It don't mean you know everything. It means you have a master's level understanding of the bullshit that bullshit is a commodity. It's a currency, is what I'm looking for. Okay. Being able to bullshit is a currency. There's a whole discipline out of it. Several of them. Propaganda, um, advertising, bullshit, marketing, bullshit, psychology is bullshit. Is bullshit. Okay. So you get you a master's in bullshit. Now you speak master's level of bullshit. Then they can't trick you with that particular level of bullshit. That don't mean you got to get a whole degree sometimes. That just means you have to spend time at least with people in that discipline who at least have their certification of the bullshit so you can at least speak the language. And somebody can't come to you and do what a Barack Obama just did was say, I understand if you don't want the jab in you, because yeah, we do got a history of poisoning people and making them sick with our experimental bullshit. However, comma, even though you're not sick at all, if you want to go outside and see your friends and family again and you need to go on ahead and get this vaccine. What happened to this was for a medical reason? In conclusion, if you want to have a hot girl summer, if you want to go out and do hood rat things with your friends, then you very much need to come and get into this vaccine. Apply that logic to anything else. You want to go out here and hit the beach, you want to have a hot girl summer, you need to hit this chemotherapy. What? So I just hope that humanity would just raise the standard. Let's just raise the standard. Know what you know, and you qualify. You test every spirit. You qualify people. It don't matter what the media says. It doesn't matter what the masses are saying because you're supposed to have the foundational building blocks of this bullshit information. Dr. Fauci is too busy picking up hookers and whores to perfect his bullshit. These are boomers. Okay, these boomers have sports cars. They've got hook. Why do you think they all getting a fucking divorce? Bill Gates got a goo gaggle of bitches. Bezos balls got bitches and hoes everywhere. They got pros in different area codes. like Ludacris and Nate Dogg. Okay, they ain't got time to be sitting over here perfecting this bullshit. They trying to slang these damn vaccines so they could get off the block and go and pop some bottles and kick it with Jay-Z. That's what they're doing. That is literally, that is like, I'm not even being funny. That's literally what they're doing. They're coming out here slanging this dope, then going back to the mansion, popping crystal, rolling up some J's, because I don't even think you can smoke a blunt to this one. That's what they doing. And people are dying, losing their businesses and everything else all around them, and they do not care. They're not looking at none of that. All they see is money. And it's just horrifying because it's true. All right, so that concludes part one of today's broadcast. Okay. I forgot what I even named it. Obama's full of Fauci or something. uh Plandemic deception exposed or something like that. I don't know. This is part one. There's going to be a part two where we're going to go further and more deep in depth. I know a lot of you know this information, but we've got to exercise our muscle of conviction. We got to practice conviction, practice knowing what we know, practice and confer with each other so we know we ain't tripping. Like if somebody else in here said, yeah, I heard Michelle mama died too. Let's not just sit at home and think we crazy. We got to make sure, because they trying to play game. They playing with us. This is a big game and they're playing with us. And be grateful that they don't have you fooled. And we in war. This is World War III. Welcome. It's right here in the Matrix. It's the machines versus the people. Because they are nothing without these damn machines. Nothing. Nothing without these devices and these propaganda arms of the media. Nothing. But the ingredient they need the most, they need our belief. They don't have the manpower to force every single person to take the jab. That's why they want you to do it willingly, because it saves them so much money in their car insurance. Remember, those are American soldiers. You saw the soldiers turn their back on Joe Biden. I don't think they can force the military and the police. Not all of them. Some of y'all ain't got no soul, but they cannot force everybody. And this vaccine, like we discussed on the previous broadcast, we had a caller talking about his friend is a psychologist and they have seen their clients reporting more grandiose behavior and more narcissism and reverting back from after taking the vaccine. So maybe they'll be using the vaccinated people to create soldiers that can do their bidding without any remorse. I'm sure that's something that they want. All right. Now, so the playback to this is going to be on the Patreon. The part two is going to be on the Patreon. I don't know how to avoid YouTube. I have tried to stay in between the raindrops as much as I can. We just going to ride it till the wheels fall off, but at the same time, I don't feel like there's anything else more important than this. I hope the audio was okay. I got me a mixer and some stuff. I need a little bit more equipment so I can improve on that. So if you would like to donate, feel free to send some money to the Patreon or to the PayPal. If you send a super chat, I will get it next month. And next month is my birthday month, so keep that in mind as well. Friday, which is tomorrow, we're going to have the Talk is Cheap broadcast. We've got some political stuff and we've got some ratchet snacks. It's going to be a fun show. We are not going to be talking about this Cornelius virus shit. We're gonna say the Cornelius Budweiser, all of it, whatever. Just make up something. We're gonna save that stuff for the Patreon. What I've been trying to do is use a different method than going through YouTube in the first place. And I still haven't entirely worked that out. So this is what it is in the meantime. My Cash App is $ TheKikigreen. And if you look on your screen here, there's a scroll that we've got scrolling across. that has my information on there as well. But yeah, the Kiki Green. And PayPal is LUVKIKIGREEN. And that'll be it until tomorrow. All right. Thank you, all of you. You know, I see all of your comments. I didn't want this video to tarry too long. So I do see all of you. I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much for leaving your comments. It helps to move the conversation along in the chat and for the people watching afterwards. So we greatly appreciate that. Will you be putting any more of your old lives on Patreon? A lot of my old lives are gone and non-existent because I've had to delete a lot of material because I got a community warning. And they went back several months on my video and it was regarding this COVID shit. So it is what it is. What we gonna do? But y'all know where to find me on Instagram, and I'm working on a website as well. So, you know, we do what we got to do. But any old lives that are not on the Patreon, I can put them on the Patreon if I still have them. But some of that stuff will be gone, and you know I would never see it again unless one of y'all reported it. All right. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.